I sent money every month without missing a single one. I called every night, even when I was so tired I could barely hold the phone. I told myself I was doing this for her, for our daughter, for the life we had planned together. And one evening, my wife looked at me through the phone screen, not with anger, not with tears, and said, "Arian, I do not know who you are anymore." I did not shout. I did not defend myself. I did not tell her she was wrong. I sat in my small room in New Jersey, in the dark, with the call still connected, and I said nothing. Because the worst part was that I did not know who I was either. That was 2 years, 4 months, and 11 days after I had left her at the airport in Mumbai. She was 7 months pregnant. She was smiling. She did not want me to remember her crying, so she smiled. And I walked through those departure gates believing, truly believing, that this separation was temporary. That America would fix everything. That I would call her from the other side and say, "See? It is already getting better." I did not know yet what those words would cost us. I did not know yet what I would become in that small room, and what she would become in that house in Mumbai, and whether the two people we became would still recognize each other when we finally stood in the same room again. My name is Arian. I was 27 years old when I left India. This is not a story about chasing the American dream. This is the story of what that dream quietly took from me while I was too busy chasing it to notice. Let me go back, because if I begin here you will not understand the weight of what came later. You need to understand what we were before any of this began. I grew up in Pune. Middle-class family, one older sister, a father who worked in a government office and a mother who ran the house with a kind of quiet efficiency I only came to appreciate much later in life. We were not poor. We were not rich. We were comfortable in the way that most Indian families of that kind are comfortable, enough to eat, enough to study, not enough to stop worrying. I was a good student. Engineering, then a master's degree in computer science from a university in Mumbai. I was not exceptional. I was hardworking and I was consistent, and I believed, the way young men often believe, that consistency would be enough to build a good life. I met Sneha in my second year of university. She was not in my department. She was studying literature, English literature, and she had the kind of confidence that comes not from arrogance but from having read enough of the world to feel at home in it. She argued with professors. She laughed at things other people did not find funny. She noticed details that other people walked past without seeing. I noticed her first at a common room in the university library. She was reading something, and she was frowning, and every few minutes she would write something in the margin of the page with a kind of intensity that made me curious about what she was thinking. I sat at the table across from her 3 times before I finally spoke to her. She told me later that she had noticed me the first time and had wondered how long it would take. That was Sneha. She always saw things before I did. We were together for 3 years before we married. Our families approved, which was fortunate, because I am not sure what I would have done if they had not. We married in a small ceremony in Pune. Sneha wore a red sari that her mother had worn at her own wedding. I remember standing next to her and thinking that this was the one decision in my life I had made without any doubt at all. The first year of our marriage was good. We had a small flat in Mumbai. I had a decent job, software development for a mid-sized company. Sneha was finishing her post-graduation and had already started applying for teaching positions at colleges in the city. We were not making a lot of money. But we were together, and in the evenings we would cook together and talk about things that had nothing to do with money, and I was happy in a way that I had not expected marriage to make me happy. I did not know then that I was already building the excuse I would later use to leave. I had a friend. His name was Vikram, and we had known each other since our engineering days. Vikram was the kind of person who moved through the world with a certainty that other people found magnetic. He had gone to the United States 2 years before me on a student visa, stayed after graduation, found work. He called me sometimes from New Jersey and told me about the salary figures, the apartments, the opportunities. He made it sound simple. He made it sound like a door that was standing open, waiting for someone to walk through it. One evening he called me and said he had spoken to someone at his company. There might be something. Not a guaranteed offer, not a formal process. Just a possibility, through a contact. I would need to figure out the visa. I would need to figure out a lot of things. But the door, he said, was open. I should have spoken to Sneha before I said anything to Vikram. I should have sat with it for a week, a month. I should have asked myself the question that I was not ready to ask: what exactly am I running toward, and what am I leaving behind? Instead, I came home that evening and told Sneha about the call. She listened. She did not react immediately. Sneha was never someone who reacted immediately to things. She thought first, and then she spoke, and when she spoke it was always the thing she actually meant. She said, "Arian, I am going to have a baby in 2 months." I said I knew. I said this would be for the baby. For our future. She said, "I want our future to have you in it." We talked for a long time that night. She did not shout. She did not cry. She laid out the reality very clearly, the way she always did. She was 7 months pregnant. Her body was already struggling. She had been having complications since the 5th month, high blood pressure, exhaustion, doctor visits every 2 weeks. My mother was living with us because her own health had been declining for over a year. Her knees, her blood pressure, her general fragility that came with being 73 years old. All the financial accounts, the lease on the flat, the insurance, everything was in my name because we had set it up that way without thinking, the way couples often do without thinking about what it means if one of them is suddenly absent. She said, "If you go, who runs this house?" I told her I would send money every month. I told her it would be better money than I was making here. I told her it would be temporary. 6 months, maybe a year, and then I would either bring her to me or come back. I believed everything I said. That is the part that is hardest to explain. I was not lying to her. I was lying to myself, and I was so convinced by my own lie that it came out sounding like the truth. She was quiet for a long time after I finished speaking. Then she said, "You have already decided." She was right. I had already decided. She knew it before I did. She came to the airport with me. My mother came also. Sneha held my hand the entire way, sitting in the back of the taxi, not saying much. At the departure gate, she put both her hands around mine and held them, the way you hold something you know you are about to let go of. She was 7 months pregnant, standing in an airport at 6 in the morning, and she was not crying because she did not want that to be the last thing I carried with me. I walked through the gate. I looked back once. She was still standing there. I did not know that the next time I would stand in the same room as her, it would be in a hospital corridor, and everything between us would have changed. New Jersey in November is a different kind of cold from anything I had known in Pune. In Pune, cold means you wear a sweater and you feel it mildly, pleasantly. In New Jersey, cold gets inside you. It comes through the windows of the room Vikram had found for us to share, through the gaps in the door frame, through the thin jacket I had brought from India which was completely inadequate. I learned this on the first morning. Vikram's contact, the possibility he had spoken about, fell through within the first 3 weeks. I am not going to go into the details of how I had come, the exact path, the visa situation, because those details are complicated, and also because what matters is not how I arrived but what I found when I got there. What I found was that the door Vikram had described as standing open was, in fact, only slightly ajar, and that pushing it open from my side was going to take much longer than either of us had imagined. For the first 2 months, I lived on the money I had saved and what Vikram could lend me, while I looked for work. I sent Sneha what I could. It was not much. Back in Mumbai, she was trying to draw from our joint account, but there were authorization issues, signatures needed, a process that seemed simple when you were both in the same city and impossible when you were not. She spent 3 days going to the bank, coming back, going again. She was 8 months pregnant. She was doing this alone because my mother's knees could not manage the walk. I knew all of this because she told me. She told me everything, in the calm factual way she told me things, without asking me to feel guilty, which somehow made me feel more guilty than if she had asked. I found my first job in December. A restaurant in Edison. Washing dishes, cleaning tables, sometimes helping in the kitchen when they were short-staffed. The pay was hourly. The hours were long. I came home smelling of cooking oil and bleach, and I would sit on the edge of the bed in the room I shared with Vikram and I would feel something that I did not have a name for yet. I called Sneha every night. From the restaurant, sometimes, on my break. From the room afterward. She answered every time. She told me about her day, about my mother, about the preparations for the baby. She asked me careful questions about how I was doing, and I gave her careful answers, and neither of us said the real things yet. Our daughter was born on the 14th of January. I was washing dishes when Sneha's message came through. I saw it on my phone between orders. A photo. A small face, red and new, eyes closed, wrapped in a hospital blanket. Sneha had written one line beneath it, "She is here. She is perfect. I wish you were here too." I stood in the kitchen of that restaurant, holding my phone with wet hands, and I looked at the photograph of my daughter for a long time. I did not cry there. I went to the back storeroom during my break and I sat on a box of canned tomatoes and I cried there, alone, where no one could see me. I named her Mia. Sneha had said I could choose the name since I had not been there for anything else. I did not know yet that I would not see Mia in person for almost 3 more years. The next several months were the months of the performance. That is the only word I have for it. Every night I called Sneha and I performed the version of myself that I needed her to see. I was fine. Things were moving. I had found a second job, warehouse work, night shifts, loading and unloading. I was saving. I was making progress. The visa situation was being handled. It would not be long now. Some of this was true. I had found the warehouse job. I was saving, slowly. But the rest of it, the sense of movement, the confidence, the not long now, that was the performance. The truth was that every morning I woke up in that room and felt a weight on my chest that was not tiredness, though I was always tired. It was something heavier. Something that had no clear cause I could point to, which made it harder to address. I did not know the word for it then. I know it now. By April, I was working the restaurant during the day and the warehouse at night, sleeping 4 or 5 hours between shifts. My body was doing things I had never asked it to do. My hands had become rough in a way that surprised me every time I looked at them. I had lost weight. I ate whatever was available between shifts, which was usually not much and usually not good. One evening Sneha video called me and I answered and she looked at my face for a long moment before saying anything. Then she said, "Aryan, what is happening to you?" I told her I was tired. Just tired. She said, "You look like a different person." I changed the subject. I asked about Mia. Sneha turned the phone toward the baby, who was 3 months old and was doing the things that 3-month-old babies do, blinking, moving her hands, making small sounds. I watched my daughter through a phone screen from 4,000 miles away and I felt the distance in a way that is very difficult to put into words. That was also the period when Sneha's financial situation became very difficult. The money I was sending was not enough to cover the house, my mother's medications, the baby's expenses, and also leave Sneha with anything of her own. She could not work. My mother needed full-time attention, and Mia was too young for any kind of childcare arrangement that Sneha could afford alone. She tried once to go back to the university to ask about a part-time position, and while she was gone my mother fell in the bathroom. Nothing broken, just a bad fright, but after that Sneha did not try again. She needed to access more of the money in our account. There was a process. She needed my signatures on documents, my presence on a video call with the bank, an authorization form that needed to be notarized on my end and sent back. I tried. It took 6 weeks because I did not have the time or the means to handle these things easily from where I was. 6 weeks in which Sneha was managing on what she had. She never said, "You should not have left." She never said, "I told you this would happen." She just handled it, the way she handled everything, quietly, practically, without falling apart in front of me. I did not understand until much later what that quietness was costing her. The teddy bear arrived back at our flat in Mumbai in May, 5 months after I had ordered it. It had been held in customs since December. By the time the delivery man brought it to the door, Mia was already 5 months old and not particularly interested in stuffed animals. Sneha sent me a photograph of it sitting on the shelf in the baby's room. She wrote, "It came. It is very soft." Mia looked at it for a moment and then looked away. I looked at that photograph for a long time. A brown teddy bear sitting on a shelf in a room I had never been in a flat I had not come back to. Something about that image stayed with me. I did not know yet that it would still be sitting on that shelf when I finally walked into that room. By the time Mia turned 1, I had been away for 14 months. I had not gone back for a visit because the money was never quite enough, and then there was a paperwork situation that complicated travel, and then the warehouse gave me more hours and I did not want to lose the position. There was always a reason. I told myself these reasons were practical. They were. They were also, I understand now, a way of not confronting what I would find if I went back. Sneha sent me a video on Mia's first birthday. A small celebration in the flat. My mother was there, a few neighbors, Sneha's younger sister who had come from Pune. There was a cake. Mia sat in front of it looking confused and then interested and then happy. At one point in the video, Sneha held the phone toward Mia and said, "Say Baba. Can you say Baba?" And Mia looked at the phone. And she said, very clearly, "Baba." Sneha's sister made a happy sound off camera. My mother said something. Sneha laughed. I watched this video 11 times. I am not exaggerating. 11 times, in my room, alone. The 12th time I watched it I could not finish it. My daughter's first word was my name. And I was not there. I want to tell you something about that period, about what was happening inside me, because I think people do not talk about this honestly. When you leave home to build a better life, there is a version of the story where you are the hero. You are the one who sacrificed. You are the one who worked hard in a foreign country, who sent money, who carried the burden of building a future for your family. People back home told my mother that. They said Aryan is working so hard for his family. He is a good son. A good husband. What no one was saying, what I was not saying to myself, was that I was also the one who was absent. I was also the one who missed the first birthday and the first word and the first steps. I was also the one who had left a pregnant woman alone to manage an elderly sick woman and a newborn and a household and a financial situation that had become difficult because of my own poor planning. I was not the hero of the story. I was not the villain either. I was just a man who had made a decision too quickly and was now too deep into it to see clearly. The depression arrived not as a single event but as a slow erosion. I stopped going to the warehouse job for 3 days in September. I told them I was sick, which was partly true. I had been having headaches that would not go away, and I was not sleeping properly, and on the 3rd morning I woke up at 7 and could not make myself get up. I lay in bed until 2 in the afternoon. Vikram came home and found me there and did not say anything, just made tea and put it on the small table beside the bed. Vikram had his own struggles. He was not the success story he had sounded like over the phone from India. He was managing, but only just. He had a Pakistani friend, a man named Samir, who came by sometimes and who had been in the United States for 8 years and had the kind of quiet steadiness that comes from having survived a long time in a foreign place. One evening Samir sat in our small living room and said to me, without any particular build-up, "You need to call your wife and tell her the truth." I said I did not know what he meant. He said, "You know exactly what I mean." I did not call Sneha that night. But I thought about what Samir said for a long time. The calls with Sneha had become shorter by then. Not because either of us wanted them to be shorter, but because the space between what we were saying and what we were not saying had grown so large that it took most of the call just to move through it. We talked about Mia. We talked about my mother's health, which was slowly stabilizing. We talked about small practical things. We did not talk about us. One evening she said it. She said, "Aryan, I do not know who you are anymore." And I sat in the dark in that small room and said nothing. The call came on a Thursday night. I remember it was Thursday because I had just finished a shift and I was on the bus back to the apartment, and my phone rang and it was a number I recognized as Sneha's sister. Sneha's sister did not call me. In 2.5 years, she had never called me directly. I answered. She said Mia had been in an accident. A scooter, a neighbor's child had a small electric scooter, Mia had been on it, she had fallen. Her head had hit the pavement. They were at the hospital. There would be surgery. I remember the bus stopping at a traffic light. I remember the lights outside the window. I remember my sister-in-law's voice, steady but afraid. I asked her to put Sneha on. Sneha came on the line and I could hear everything she was not saying in the 2 seconds before she spoke. She said, "Come home, Aryan." Just that. 3 words. Not, "Please come," or "You should come," or "I think you need to come." Just, "Come home." I got off the bus at the next stop. I did not go back to the apartment first. I called Vikram from the street and told him what had happened. He said he had some money saved. He said, "Take what you need." I found a flight, Newark to Mumbai, connecting through Dubai, leaving at 7 the next morning. The ticket cost more than I had. Vikram lent me the difference. I went back to the apartment, put what I needed in a bag, and sat on the edge of the bed until it was time to go to the airport. I did not sleep. I sat and I thought about Mia, this child I had seen only in photographs and videos, whose voice I knew from phone calls, whose face I could picture but had never touched. I thought about the teddy bear sitting on a shelf in her room. I thought about Sneha at that airport in Mumbai 2.5 years ago, holding my hands, not crying. I thought about all the things I had been performing and none of the things I had been feeling. I arrived in Mumbai on a Saturday afternoon. Sneha's sister was at the airport. Mia was out of surgery. The surgeon had said it went well, that there was no lasting damage, that she would need to stay in the hospital for several more days for observation. I got in the taxi and went directly to the hospital. I walked into the corridor outside the pediatric ward and Sneha was there. She was sitting on a bench with a paper cup of tea that had gone cold. She was wearing the kind of clothes you wear when you have spent a night in a hospital, practical, not chosen for anything but warmth. Her hair was tied back. She looked tired in a way that went beyond one sleepless night. She looked up when she saw me. I had thought about what I would say. I had thought about it for the entire flight, through Dubai, across the ocean, all the way here. I had prepared sentences. I had prepared explanations. I had prepared, in some part of myself, a defense. I said none of it. I sat down on the bench beside her. She did not move away. We sat there for a moment, side by side, not touching, looking at the corridor in front of us. Then she said, "She looks like you." I said, "I know. From the videos." She said, "It is different in person." I said, "I know." We sat there for another long moment. Then Sneha put the paper cup down on the floor very carefully, the way you set something down when you are trying not to spill it, and she turned to look at me, and she said, "Tell me the truth, Aryan. All of it. Not the version you thought I needed to hear." And I did. I told her about the restaurant. I told her about the warehouse. I told her about the debt, the plan that had not worked, the door that Vikram had described as open that had turned out not to be. I told her about lying in bed for 3 days and not being able to get up. I told her about Samir saying I should call her and tell her the truth and me not calling. I told her about watching the video of Mia saying Baba 12 times and not being able to finish the 13th. She listened to all of it. She did not interrupt. She did not look away. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Can I tell you what it was like here?" I said yes. She told me. She told me about the 6 weeks trying to access the bank account. She told me about the night Mia had a fever of 104 and she had no way to reach me for 3 hours because I had been on a warehouse shift. She told me about the morning she sat in the kitchen at 5 a.m. because she could not sleep, because my mother needed something and Mia needed something and she had nothing left, and she had looked at her hands in the kitchen light and thought, "I have a master's degree in English literature. I have read things that would change the way you see the world. And I am sitting here at 5 in the morning with nothing to my name because everything is in my husband's name and my husband is 4,000 miles away." She said she was not angry anymore. She said that was the strange thing. She had been angry for a long time. At me, at the situation, at the version of our future that had dissolved so quickly. But somewhere in the last year, the anger had quieted into something else. Something more like grief for what we had been, and exhaustion, and a question she could not stop asking herself: who are we to each other now? I did not have an answer for that question. I do not think either of us did, sitting on that hospital bench. What I said was this: I should not have gone the way I went. I should not have left you the way I left you. I knew it when I was doing it and I did it anyway, because I was more afraid of staying than I was of leaving, and I made you pay for my fear. She looked at me for a long moment. Then she said, "I know. We were not fixed in that corridor. 2.5 years of absence and silence and performed okayness does not dissolve in one honest conversation. But something shifted. Something that had been locked, that I had felt locked for a very long time, opened slightly, the way a door opens when you finally use the right key. They let us see Mia the next morning. She was in a small bed with a bandage on her head, and she was awake, and she looked at me with the particular serious expression that I had seen in photographs but had not understood until I saw it in person, an expression that was entirely Sneha's, this careful consideration of the world before deciding how to respond to it. I sat beside her bed. I did not know what to say to a 2.5-year-old I had never been in the same room with. I said her name. I said, "I am your Baba." She looked at me for a long moment. Then she pointed at the bandage on her head and said something in the rapid fragmented language of toddlers that I did not fully understand. Sneha, standing behind me, said, "She is telling you it does not hurt very much anymore." I looked at my daughter and I felt something in my chest that I cannot describe accurately except to say that it was the opposite of the weight that had been sitting there for 2.5 years. Not lightness exactly. Not happiness. Something more like arrival. I stayed in Mumbai. I did not book a return flight. Vikram understood when I called him. Samir, when I spoke to him later, said he was not surprised. I found work in Pune within a month. Not what I had been making in America, not what I might have made if the American plan had worked, but decent work, honest work, work that let me come home in the evenings. Sneha went back to the university. She had not lost her standing there. She came back, and she was good at it, the way she was good at everything she had actually chosen. We moved to Pune. A new flat, smaller than the Mumbai one, in a building with a small garden where Mia learned to walk on grass. My mother came with us and had her own room and sat in the garden in the afternoons. Things were not perfect. Sneha and I had a lot of conversations that were very difficult, conversations we should have been having all along, conversations about what we wanted and what we were afraid of and what we had done to each other without meaning to. Some of those conversations ended well. Some of them did not end well, and we had to try again the next day. That is where we are. Still trying. Still here. Mia's room has a shelf above the window. On that shelf there is a brown teddy bear, soft and slightly faded now, that sat in a customs hold in Mumbai for 5 months before it arrived at our flat. She calls him something I cannot reproduce in writing, a toddler's invention, a name that exists only in her language. She carries him sometimes when she is tired. She does not know the story of where he came from or how long it took him to arrive. One day she will be old enough to understand it. I am not sure yet what I will tell her. I think I will tell her the truth. That her father sent the bear from very far away, when he was trying very hard to do the right thing and not always succeeding. That the bear sat in a box for months and then it arrived, late, softer than expected. That sometimes things met with love still arrive late. And that what matters is what you do when they finally get there. I thought America would save my family. It did not. What it did was teach me, slowly and at great cost, that the thing I was trying to save my family for was already where I had left it. In that flat in Mumbai. In Sneha's hands at the airport. In a child whose first word was my name, spoken into a phone, to a face on a screen. If you are watching this and you have made a choice like mine, or if someone you love has, I am not here to tell you it was wrong. I am only here to say, count the cost clearly. Not just your cost. All of it. Everyone who loves you pays part of the price of your dream. Make sure you know what you are asking of them before you ask it. If this story felt like something you have lived, or something you are living now, I would like to hear from you. Leave a comment. Tell me your version of it. And if you are here for the first time and you want more stories like this one, true, honest, human stories, then stay with us. There are many more.